May 30th, 1884. Dear Miss Moore, thank you for your letter. I knew you were something special the moment I saw you giving McDonald's great oaf what for back in Chicago. And your latest letter just confirmed it. Since you've agreed to exchange letters with me, I'll do my darndest to supply you with my most interesting adventures during our correspondence. I'm very glad you've been able to find a suitable position with Miss Lottie. She's a fine woman with a heart of gold. I've grown fond of her during my various visits to Frisco. You could say she's the eccentric rich aunt I never had. And you're right. All these girls dancing and singing and whatnot for her would be doing something much less reputable if it wasn't for her and that heart of gold. Many of those girls were destitute orphans, or were widows due to mining accidents and the shadier goings-on in Frisco. She saved every one of them from taking to the streets, including you, it appears. Not implying that you intended to take to the streets, of course. But I don't think many of the girls that do ever intend to in the first place. As the son of a mother left in dire circumstances when my father passed, I'm much obliged to women like Miss Lottie. I am glad you found room and board with the Mormon family. They're peculiar, all right, but I had quite a bit of interaction with them during my time as a Texas Ranger. That was before I joined the Pinkertons. Being a lawman, the Mormons have always been suspicious at the start, and who can blame them after what they've faced back in Missouri? However, once they've seen I mean them in no harm, they've usually warmed right up and are mighty kind and hospitable. So Frisco has a ghost now, you say? Well, how about that? I've heard many a specter story out here in the Western Territory, and have seen a few things I can't rightly explain. I'm not saying I believe in ghosts or the like, but if you like your blood chilled now and again, Miss Moore, the Navajo tribe sure has a few stories that'll tickle your spine. I look forward to hearing more about this specter development. Now, you asked me to tell you a bit about myself. While I'd usually rather dance with a pair of scorpions, I'll oblige in your case, especially since I hope you'll tell me more about yourself in return. I was born and raised in Texas. My daddy was a Texas Ranger and, unfortunately, a careless gambling man. He was a good man, though. Being anti-slavery, he and my 3 older brothers left Texas to go fight for the Union when the rebel states turned. This, and of course my daddy's gambling debts, didn't make Texas a very welcoming place for me and my mama. When I finally turned 16 and could take over paying the debts, Mama moved back to Pennsylvania, where her people are. Not too long after that, I got a word that my daddy and brothers were all killed in the war. Rather than follow my mama back east, I decided to stay behind and clear up my daddy's debts so they wouldn't follow her back there. I decided the best way to do that was to join up with the Texas Rangers myself. The pay was decent, and with only myself and Mama to support, I was able to make some good headway on clearing my daddy's name. I was with the Rangers for a few years back in the 70s. I was part of the posse that helped Armstrong take down John Wesley Hardin and his gang. That's when I met Bill Pinkerton and his father, who'd been hired to go after Hardin by a private party. I guess old Pinkerton saw something in me that he thought would make a pretty good detective, because when Hardin was finally behind bars, he invited me to come work for their agency in Chicago. Unfortunately, I still had a sight of debt left to pay, so I told them I wouldn't go until it was paid off. Pinkerton Sr. offered to pay my debt if I came and worked for him immediately. He said I could pay it back over time. As a then 19-year-old, becoming a Pinkerton sounded like quite the adventure, so I accepted. I've been working out of Chicago ever since. That was 7 years ago, and for a while I was satisfied with the work, and pretty good at it too. Something happened last year, however, that has me a mite disillusioned to it all. I'm tired and weathered beyond my years, I guess. Chasing outlaws and the Apache for too long has left me callous and a bit harder than I think my mama would like. This is my last case for the Pinkertons, though. I plan to head farther west and settle down in California when I'm done. I like it out there. There's a lot of fresh air and sunshine. Crops grow real well, and I feel like if there's any good life left to be gotten after the things I've seen, that's where I'll find it. How's that for a bit more about myself? Don't worry, I've got more to tell. I just don't want to give it all away for fear you'll stop writing to me out of sheer boredom. Now, Miss Moore, we've already been through a spell of trouble together. I know how closely you guard your own reputation, and I know I can trust you with my own, which is why I don't mind telling you about the spell of mischief the stars have had me under the last fortnight. Perhaps as a woman you'll be able to shed a little light on their shenanigans. Not saying women in general get up to shenanigans, of course. You just might understand the way they think a mite better than a man. After all, I've never chased lady outlaws before, and I'd happily accept any input you might feel inclined to share. The stars have been getting a real kick out of sending me on a wild goose chase. First, they led me into the most peculiar and confounding canyon I've ever seen. It was nothing but red rock and strange totem-like pillars for as far as the eye could see. The peyote call it Unca Timpewa Winspokich, which I think has something to do with red rocks standing like men in a bowl-shaped ravine. Mighty accurate description, if you ask me. I was lost in there and circling that bowl-shaped ravine for 3 days before I finally found my way out again. A few days later, the stars stole my horse out from under me. They ran off with her and the rest of my rig while I was getting some shut-eye in a tree. At first I thought I had run into some trouble with the natives, but the stars always leave their mark. 3 stars forming a triangle. Who knows where I'd be if it weren't for a kindly old hermit living in a cave near the mouth of the canyon. He gave me enough food and a mule to get down to Cannonville for new supplies. The stars may have been kind to you, Miss Moore, but they've been nothing but a real pain in the derriere to me, if you'll pardon my saying so. I'm in Canyonville now. I'm posting this letter to you, and then I'll be moving on. The stars may be leading me to a piper's tune, but I'm determined to discover what they're about. Speaking of trouble, I wish I'd have known who you were off to marry when you told me on the train. If I had known it was Gambit, I would have stolen you away from that train and married you myself, just to save you the trouble. Never mind how self-serving it would be on my part. I would have never sent my bride an escort for one thing. If she was as fine and pretty a lady as you, I would have stopped at nothing to escort her myself. But Gambit is the worst kind of varmint. We've dealt with him and his men in Chicago off and on since the Horn silver mine opened. Seems he thinks that mine is going to keep giving up silver forever, and maybe it will. He sure acts that way when he visits old MacDonald at the store. One of these days he'll regret loosening his saddlebags, like he does, though in fact a body starts to wonder why he's robbing trains like he is if he owns shares in the richest silver mine in the world. I'll be sending some of my ranger friends his way if I cross their path any time soon. Well, Miss Moore, I'll say goodbye for now. Last I heard, the stars were headed back toward Glendale and Orderville. If I don't catch them there, I'll head south to Kanab. You can send any letters you feel like writing. Hopefully there will be several. To Kanab. I'll be stopping there in a fortnight or so, barring I don't run into further mischief along the way. I'd sure like to see your pretty handwriting again when I get there. Makes a man feel real warm at night with a letter like that tucked right up next to his heart for safekeeping. Yours very truly, Matthew Hickman. May 1st through June 1st, 1884. The Paiute call the strange canyon I got lost in, Unka Timpe wa Wince Pakech, means red rocks standing like men in a bowl-shaped canyon. Felt like I was lost in a giant petrified forest of those sequoia up north. Slept under this arch with my horse standing guard. Could see every star in the big old Milky Way. A pack of coyotes began tracking me, and old Orion the moment we entered the canyon. Heard them yipping in the distance. Started counting stars to keep my mind straight. My dreams were sweet relief, filled with Miss Moore and those bright blue sparks in her eyes. Thank goodness Jeb still lives in that old hermit cave just shy of Canyonville. I was half starved when I showed up at his door, even half starved. That Slumgullion stew he always ends up feeding me didn't improve. Tell him he either needs to go woo himself a wife or learn how to cook. I wasn't sad to borrow his mule and go find myself some real grub in Canyonville. Sleeping in a tree while the bright stars are on the loose wasn't my brightest idea yet. I sure miss old Orion and my rig. My spare pistols were in that satchel. Picked up a set of Colts like Hardin's pair of 1877s in Canyonville. These look like they've been to Hades and back. Ah, well, as Pa always said, a crack shot is a crack shot regardless of the instrument. Continental Union Telegraph Company. Sent by A.K. Received by J.L. Time 3:57 p.m. June 1st, 1884. Utah Central Railway Station, Cannonville, Utah Territory. To Mr. Bill Pinkerton. Bill, tell Rigby I know what the stars stole from him. If he wants it back, he better tell me where they're hiding, and soon. Matt. Continental Union Telegraph Company, sent by J.B., received by C.H. Time 7:12. June 2nd, 1884. Chicago Railway Station, Chicago, Illinois. To Agent Matthew Hickman. The Cap says he doesn't know. Said if you were any good at your job, you'd have caught them in Frisco. What I told him in return isn't polite enough to repeat via wire, but you're welcome. He must really want what you've got, 'cause neither of us are fired. Recommendation: wrap this one up as soon as possible. Also, ran into Gambit back here. Came to collect his man from McDonald. Tread lightly around this one, lad. He's the tricky sort, and I don't think he's done bothering your Miss Moore. Bill.